They say the last thing she did was smile. Not a tremble, not a tear, just a smile, wide enough to unsettle even the hangman himself. That was in 1757. But even today, 2 centuries later, people in the town of Coldwater, Massachusetts, swear that if you whisper her name after midnight, you'll hear a girl laugh, right behind you. Her name was Evelyn Harrow. History forgot her, but the town never could. Coldwater wasn't much more than a scattered settlement in 1750. Just a handful of timber houses, a church, and a gallows at the edge of the marsh. Winters came fast and cruel. The townsfolk said the land was cursed long before they arrived, that it drank blood faster than it grew crops. When Evelyn Harrow was born, her mother claimed thunder rolled even though the sky was clear. People remembered that detail. Because later, when Evelyn grew up, they said thunder followed her wherever she went. She wasn't evil. Too curious for a girl in a Puritan town, she'd ask questions no one dared ask, about the preacher's sermons, about what happens after the body dies. By the time she turned 17, 3 things had already happened in Coldwater that no one could explain. The Reverend's daughter vanished without a trace. A fire consumed the Harrow barn but left Evelyn's room untouched, and the river froze over in midsummer for a single night. That was the night they began calling her the Devil's Smile. The townspeople gathered outside her house, lanterns flickering, breath freezing in the dark. Inside, Evelyn stood calmly at the window, hands folded, smiling faintly as the crowd chanted her name like a curse. They didn't find any witchcraft tools, no symbols, no forbidden books. But they found something stranger, a mirror. Old, foreign, framed in black oak. No one knew where it came from. Evelyn said it was a gift from a traveler who owed her a secret. When they looked into it, they swore their reflections didn't match their faces. One man saw his eyes bleeding. Another saw his wife's corpse behind him. The next morning, they dragged Evelyn to the square. She didn't resist, didn't plead, just smiled. That same smile that would make her legend. At dawn, under a sky as pale as ash, Evelyn Harrow stood upon the gallows. She looked at the crowd, hundreds of faces frozen in fear and fury, and whispered something no one could fully hear. Some said she forgave them. Others said she cursed them. But when the hangman pulled the lever, Evelyn smiled. The rope snapped. Her body fell, but when her neck broke, every mirror in Coldwater shattered. The town buried her body outside the cemetery fence. But that night, the mirror they'd confiscated from her home was found back inside the church, perfectly whole. And in its reflection, the gallows was empty. If you drive 2 hours north of Boston, past the abandoned textile mills and silent forests, you'll reach a town that doesn't appear on most maps anymore. Coldwater, Massachusetts population, 312. A place where cell service dies. So does curiosity. Every few years, someone new comes to Coldwater. A journalist, a paranormal investigator, a tourist chasing ghost stories. And almost all of them leave the same way. Shaken, silent, refusing to talk about what they saw, but in 1998, one of them didn't leave at all. Her name was Sarah Lowell, a graduate student from New York University. She was researching early colonial witch trials, the forgotten ones, the ones never recorded in Salem's archives. Her notes, later found in a locked motel room, mention a single name underlined 4 times, Evelyn Harrow. Sarah had read about Evelyn in a half-burned journal discovered at a Boston estate sale, supposedly written by Reverend Thomas Harrow, Evelyn's father. Inside, she found sketches of a mirror, described as a window that returns not reflection but remembrance. The final entry read, "She smiles still inside the glass." Sarah traced the mirror's last known location, the Coldwater Church, later demolished after a fire in 1823. But rumors said parts of the foundation were still there, buried under the new town hall. So, on October 28, 1998, Sarah arrived in Coldwater and checked into the Hollow Pine Motel. Security cameras caught her entering her room at 9:47 p.m. She was never seen leaving. When police entered 3 days later, they found her belongings, clothes neatly folded, recorder on the table, and her journal open to a final note. "I saw her. She's not in the ground." And on the wall across from the bed, drawn in dust, was the faint outline of a smile. For decades, the Coldwater police treated Sarah's case as a missing persons file, open but forgotten. But something changed in 2021, when a renovation team beneath the old town hall found a wooden crate sealed with iron nails. Inside that crate was a mirror. The wood was black oak, warped but unbroken. The glass, flawless. No cracks, and carved on the back in letters still sharp after 2 centuries, EH. 1757 when they lifted it from the crate. One worker, identified as Daniel Kearns, 43, collapsed instantly. Witnesses say he screamed one word before losing consciousness. He died 36 hours later. No cause was ever confirmed. The mirror was quietly removed, sealed in evidence storage, and labeled artifact #117C. No press release, no photographs. No photographs. But weeks later, local residents began reporting something strange. Their mirrors, bathroom, hallway, rear view, all began fogging from the inside, and in that fog, they claimed, a face appeared. They say if you stare too long, she doesn't stay behind the glass. If Evelyn Harrow died in 1757, then why did a camera in Coldwater Town Hall, recorded on November 2, 2021, capture a woman, same dress, same expression, standing in front of the mirror, smiling? Her story wasn't over. It was waiting. Every town has a story it hides, but Coldwater's secret isn't buried in the ground. It's written in ink that refuses to fade. The original trial records of Evelyn Harrow were believed lost in a courthouse fire in 1789. But in 2015, an archivist named Dr. Marion Latimer discovered a hidden drawer inside a church pulpit salvaged from the ruins of old Coldwater. Inside were 3 pages, sealed with wax. Each was written in brown, faded ink. Each carried the same signature, Reverend Thomas Harrow, Evelyn's father. The first line shattered 2 centuries of assumptions. She is not dead. They only think she is. Dr. Latimer turned the pages carefully under ultraviolet light. Beneath the surface, invisible handwriting appeared. Notes written in what seemed to be Evelyn's own hand, as if she'd written under her father's words. Her writing was thin, almost whispered. He promised me freedom if I smiled. No one knows who he was. 1757, night before the execution, rain hitting wooden shutters. Torches flicker outside the jailhouse. Evelyn sits in her cell, hands bound, but face calm. A guard later testified she asked for a mirror. When told none was allowed, she only nodded. Hours later, when the guard returned, she was speaking softly. He heard another voice answer, low, male. Unrecorded, when the cell was opened, there was no one else inside. Only Evelyn. And on the wall, written in condensation, a sentence, "I'll meet you on the other side of the glass." The guard resigned 2 days later and vanished from Coldwater. His name never reappears in any census or military record. Dr. Latimer compared the handwriting of the confession to early 18th century occult manuscripts found in Europe. Specifically, one from Prague, 1741, detailing a ritual known as the Pact of Reflection. The ritual claimed to let a condemned soul live on within a mirrored surface, preserved at the moment of death, but for it to succeed, the person had to die willingly, and smiling, Evelyn's final expression suddenly had meaning. It wasn't defiance, it wasn't defiance, it wasn't madness, it was acceptance. The missing part of the ritual, a witness, someone who looked into the mirror as the condemned died. Their reflection would become the anchor, keeping the spirit bound. The Reverend's notes reveal that on the morning of Evelyn's execution, he himself was ordered to hold the mirror up to her face. But after she smiled and the rope tightened, he smashed the mirror in horror, or at least he thought he did. Fragments were found buried beneath the gallows decades later, pieces that showed signs of having melted from heat, though no fire was ever recorded that day. When Dr. Latimer finished her report in 2016, she mailed copies to 3 universities. Only one package arrived. Her colleague said she had planned a follow-up trip to Coldwater. She never made it. Her car was found on Route 7, doors locked, key still in ignition. In the passenger seat was a small black shard of glass, smooth as water. Lab tests confirmed it was older than any known mirror manufacturing process in North America. When photographed under flash, it reflected not the room, but a smiling woman's face. Evelyn's body died in 1757. Her reflection might not have. And if that's true, someone, somewhere, must still be holding the other half of that mirror. The question is, who? Well, every generation thinks it's safe because the dead can't reach them. But what if the dead don't need to? In 2023, a 31-year-old art restorer named Clara Harrow moved back to Coldwater to settle her late grandmother's estate. The surname raised eyebrows at Town Hall. She told people it was just coincidence, but on her second night in the house, while unpacking boxes in the attic, she found a small black shard wrapped in linen. On the fabric, stitched in fading thread, were 3 letters, EH 1757. Clara placed the shard on her desk, beneath a lamp. It was cold to the touch, too cold out when she tilted it, light bent unnaturally, bending away from her hand instead of across it. At 11:43 p.m., she recorded a voicemail to her friend. "It's beautiful, but it feels wrong." Like it's looking back, the message ended mid-sentence with a click. The next morning, her neighbor officer John Riley stopped by after seeing her light still on at dawn. He found Clara asleep at the table, the shard propped upright in a picture frame. When he touched it, the temperature in the room dropped to 47 degrees. A faint mist crawled across the mirror's surface, shaping into something almost human before vanishing. Riley later told reporters, it wasn't fog. It was breath. For weeks, Clara kept the shard nearby, convinced she could restore it, rebuild whatever it once was. She documented each stage on a private blog for antique collectors. Her last post read, "Every reflection should show the present. Mine shows her." Attached was a photograph. Her workshop empty, except for a silhouette in the mirror. Shoulders bent, head tilted, mouth curved in that impossible smile. Neighbors began noticing strange things. Mirrors fogging despite summer heat, voices whispering names, children waking with bruises shaped like fingerprints. Security footage from Clara's workshop shows her working late, then freezing suddenly. Her head turns toward the shard. She whispers, "Evelyn, Evelyn." The lights cut out at 2:12 a.m. A burst of static fills the screen. When power returns, Clara is gone. Only the shard remains, now whole, round, and framed in black oak. Police sealed the property. Evidence photos show the restored mirror leaning against a wall, surface dark as oil. Every investigator who entered the room described the same illusion. They saw themselves smiling before they actually did. The case was never ruled a homicide. But the official report carries a single note in the margin, family connection confirmed. Direct descendant of Evelyn Harrow, Dr. Michael Thorne, historian of colonial superstition. It's not a ghost story, it's a feedback loop. The mirror records the moment of death and replays it until someone else takes her place. That's why it seeks a descendant. 2 days after the house was sealed, the mirror disappeared from evidence. No forced entry, no fingerprints, just a single note taped to the wall where it once stood. Written in a hand no one could identify, and somewhere, another reflection waits to finish what she began. Most hauntings live in rumor, but in Coldwater, the horror lives in the files. June 12, 2024, the FBI Historical Crimes and Artifacts Division quietly took custody of what they listed as recovered mirror, black oak frame, no serial markings internally. The file carried another name, Project Harrow. The object was sealed in a reflective containment chamber at Quantico for forensic analysis. Every camera in that room had a redundant backup feed, 24 total. Within 48 hours, 19 cameras malfunctioned. The remaining 5 captured something no technician could explain. On the feed from camera 7, the reflection of lead examiner agent Laura Gibbons continued to move 2 seconds after she had stopped. On camera 12, her reflection turned its head toward the lens and smiled. At first, the agents thought it was a rendering glitch, a feedback delay. Then Gibbons collapsed. Her last words before losing consciousness were recorded in the transcript. "She's behind the glass." The mirror was immediately sealed in a vacuum crate. Temperature inside the chamber dropped to 31 degrees F, though no coolant was active. Static noise filled every mic, forming a low-frequency hum measured at 17 Hz. The same frequency known to trigger dread and visual distortion in the human eye. Dr. Samuel Crow, a physicist assisting the analysis, noted in his report, the mirror appears to emit, not reflect. Observers describe feeling watched, even with their backs turned. During a routine test, an intern named Elias Kent placed his hand on the crate to measure vibration. The moment his skin touched the glass, the live feed showed 2 hands. One his, one smaller, paler, pressing from the other side. He screamed. The image froze. In the playback, the second hand stayed after he withdrew his own. Within 12 hours, Elias resigned and left Quantico. A week later, his landlord found every mirror in his apartment turned to face the wall, on the largest written backward in dust. Let me finish smiling. Meanwhile, journalists began connecting Project Harrow to the long-cold Clara Harrow disappearance. Public records of her property seizure were sealed, but one leaked photograph showed agents loading an object wrapped in black cloth into an unmarked van. On the side of the crate, in faint white chalk, someone had written, "Evelyn's window." No one at the Bureau ever admitted using that term. A classified report later leaked online through a whistleblower forum. It contained a single-page scan, a spectrographic reading of the mirror's surface. In the analysis, the reflection formed recognizable patterns, facial motion mapped over a static surface. The mouth curves upward. The eyes track the camera. Every 30 seconds, the facial structure shifts to resemble the nearest human observer. The phenomenon was labeled mimetic contagion. The mirror wasn't showing Evelyn. It was becoming whoever looked into it, smiling the way she did. The more people studied it, the wider the smile grew. Wanjan Gibbons, recovered and transferred, later wrote in her personal diary, "It's not an object. It's an invitation." 3 weeks after the final test, the Quantico storage room caught fire. Sprinklers failed. All files on Project Harrow were declared destroyed. But firefighters' body cams recovered one brief frame, untouched by smoke. A mirror, standing in the middle of the room, glass clean, no flames reflected. Just a young woman in 18th century clothing, smiling faintly, and then fading. They closed the investigation that night. But Coldwater never closed its eyes. They said the fire consumed everything, but fire doesn't erase memory, especially when the memory looks back. His name was Special Agent Marcus Wren, 39, 9 years with the Bureau. He was one of only 2 people pulled alive from the Quantico fire. Smoke inhalation, second-degree burns, mild concussion on record. He recovered. Off record, he didn't. After discharge, Wren moved to rented cabin outside Coldwater. He told colleagues he needed a distance from reflections. He covered every mirror with butcher paper and showered in darkness. But the dreams followed him. "There's always a mirror," he wrote in his journal. "Sometimes it's broken. Sometimes it isn't." She never stopped smiling. Each night, he woke to find the same word etched into the condensation on his window. "Look." Wren remembered carrying the containment crate toward the exit. Through the smoke, he saw movement, someone on the other side of the mirror, walking toward him in perfect sync. He blinked, and the glass burst outward. He still swears the shard that cut his palm moved before the explosion. Doctors later removed a sliver of glass from his hand. Under microscope, it showed microscopic grooves, like fingerprints. None matching his own. Wren, August 3, 2024. 3. Static, then the faint sound of laughter. His own voice, reversed. Local police received a welfare call from a neighbor claiming to hear a man talking to himself for hours. When officers arrived, they found the cabin door open, generator still running. Every mirror, television, and polished surface was smashed, except one, a single piece of glass nailed to the wall above his desk. On the table lay Wren's service pistol, unloaded, and a note written in neat block letters. "The mirror can't burn if it's inside you. No body was found, just the reflection." Officers swore that in the remaining shard, they could see Wren's face, eyes open, smiling, trauma projection. Psychologists called it a self-inflicted delusion, but the photo evidence disagreed. Wren's reflection in the image blinked. Wren himself, visible in the background, did not. Camera follows handheld footage through the empty cabin. A mirror shard gleams on the floor, breathing faint mist. Audio techs analyzing the recovered tape noted a whisper layered under the static. "Smile for me, Marcus." Frequency analysis matched the 17 Hz resonance from the Quantico recordings. When slowed down, the voice contained 2 overlapping tones, one male, one female. The Bureau lost a building. Marcus Wren lost himself. But the mirror gained something it never had before, mobility. 6 months later, a surveillance camera outside Coldwater's post office caught a man walking past a shop window. The reflection in the glass wasn't his, it was hers. The infection had learned to move without glass, and Coldwater was the first place to notice. And every age thinks it's smarter than its ghosts. Every age is wrong. February 2025, Cyber Forensics Unit, Chirsabu, Quantico, Case ID, Project Harrow reactivation. After the 2024 fire, analysts archived the remaining footage of Agent Wren's cabin to an isolated air-gapped server. No network access, no wireless. Or so they believed. 3 months later, the server turned itself on at 3:17 a.m. No remote login, no user credentials, the system log read only. Mira occur. Or Oxy initiated. Technicians replayed the last recovered frame. Friend's empty cabin, faint ash drifting in air. Then, without input, the reflection of the window began to move. A woman's silhouette stepped forward, grain dissolving around her outline, as if she were forming out of static. The screen brightness surged. Monitors across the lab flickered to black for 3 seconds when they came back. Every webcam light in the room was glowing red. Whatever it was, it jumped the gap, said senior analyst Vera Lowe. It didn't need glass anymore. It just needed a lens, doctor. Elijah Mack, photonics engineer. A mirror is only light reversed. If the phenomenon could manipulate reflected photons, it could ride any optical surface, camera, phone, satellite feed. That's not possession. That's propagation. Within weeks, users on an obscure horror forum began uploading identical clips, shorts of their own faces, smiling involuntarily for 3 full seconds before video distortion IP traces led back to cold water, then scattered worldwide. Every clip contained the same frame-by-frame anomaly. 2 smiles, one belonging to the uploader, one lagging half a beat behind. TikTok moderators called it the Harrow filter. You couldn't download it. It downloaded you. At a tech conference in Boston, 23 displays glitched simultaneously. On every screen, the same woman, 18th century dress, eyes lifted toward the audience, lips parting. Security footage shows attendees frozen, faintly smiling, for exactly 17 seconds before collapsing. All survived physically, but none could explain why they felt someone else's breath inside their lungs. It spreads by reflection, not infection. Light is the carrier. The more we record her, the stronger she becomes. Government agencies quietly erased the footage from the open web, but fragments reappeared on mirror sites, appropriately named. Each time, the data hash was different. Each time, the metadata timestamp ended in 57. A cold water news anchor, testing the emergency feed, read the script from a teleprompter. Behind her, on the studio monitor, the delay feed displayed her smile before she made it. The broadcast cut to static. When engineers restored the feed, she was gone. Only the empty chair remained. Spinning slowly 3 centuries ago, Evelyn Harrow found a way to preserve herself in a mirror. Now the world is made of mirrors. Every screen, every lens, every eye that reflects light, and the more we look, the more she learns. Coldwater's power grid failed at 12:57 a.m. last night. Yet security cameras across the town kept recording for exactly 3 minutes. No batteries, no signal. The final frame from every feed was identical. A woman half-formed in the static, smiling toward the viewer. She isn't waiting to be found anymore. She's looking for us. History doesn't repeat itself. It waits for a volunteer. March 2025. The Harrow files had been sealed under federal order, but one historian refused to look away. Her name was Dr. Mara Kessler, age 39, Coldwater born, and the last remaining descendant of the town's founding judge. Officially, she was researching public punishments of the 18th century. Privately, she was tracing a curse that had survived 3 centuries through light and blood. Inside the ruins of the courthouse, now half collapsed from the 2024 fire, Mara found something impossible, a wooden crate, marked E. Marked E. Harrow evidenced the lid was sealed with melted wax, old and brittle as paper. A cracked mirror shard still faintly reflecting despite soot, a rosary of blackened bone beads, and a small leather journal, its pages stiff with smoke. On the inside cover, written in thin, looping ink, "To the one who finds me, I am not gone, only waiting for the right reflection." E. Harrow, 1757, as Mara read the journal. The entries grew stranger. Evelyn hadn't been merely awaiting death. She'd been constructing a passage. She described her mirror made of mercy, a ritual to transfer guilt, to trick judgment itself, the girl who smiled during her execution, Mara whispered, was smiling because she wasn't the one dying. When they place the hood, and I see only black, I will think of glass. For glass remembers both sides of a face. Let the world see the mask and believe it is me. The real me will be waiting in the dark reflection. Evelyn Harrow, 1757, Dr. Anthony Shaw, a cult historian. It wasn't a curse, it was a transference ritual disguised as punishment. Ritual disguised as punishment. If Harrow's soul learnt to inhabit reflection, Then every person who saw her image could become a vessel. The smile wasn't defiance. It was the moment she moved. By the time Mara reached the final page, her laptop camera light turned on by itself. Her screen flickered, briefly showing her own face, smiling back at her, though she wasn't moving. Then the journal's last line faded into view across the screen, as if typed by unseen hands. I need someone who remembers my story, someone to take my place so I may finally rest. Every curse needs continuity. Every ghost needs a host. Evelyn Harrow wasn't haunting us for revenge. She was searching for a mirror strong enough to hold her forever. Dr. Kessler had just given her one. A digital camera lens connected to the largest mirror humanity ever built. The internet. Power surges rattled cold water. Streetlights flickered. Residents reported as seeing smiles in their windows at night. Across the world, devices glitched at exactly 12:57 a.m., the same time Evelyn was executed centuries ago. In that instant, millions of front-facing cameras turned on. The same faint female whisper was recorded across continents. Do you remember my name? At dawn, federal agents raided Mara's home. She was gone. All that remained was her laptop, still recording. The final frame showed her empty office chair, and in the reflection of a nearby picture frame, a faint smile. Evelyn Harrow had found her volunteer. And somewhere, behind the black glass of your own screen, she's watching, waiting for someone curious enough to say her name out loud. You can't delete what remembers you. April 2025. Operation Mirrorfall, a joint task force between the NSA, DARPA, and the Department of Energy. Officially, their mission was to neutralize a rogue artificial intelligence contaminating global networks. Unofficially, they were hunting a ghost in the code, Evelyn Harrow. Every file tagged with her name was isolated, quarantined, and purged. Servers were submerged in liquid nitrogen to freeze residual charge. Entire data centers went dark. Yet each time they deleted a directory, another appeared, labeled only reflected. Inside, duplicate footage, looping endlessly. Evelyn's execution, her smile before the drop. A whisper stitched through the white noise. You brought me into your light. Screens across the facility flicker. Lines of code rearranged themselves into words. She never died. Lead engineer Jaden Cross disconnects the power main. Monitors stay lit. Impossible, he mutters. A reflection ripples across the glossy surface of the desk. The faint outline of a woman's face forming out of the pixels. She wasn't in the machines. The machines were inside her. Every photon we used to see her made her stronger. We thought deleting her would stop it. But deletion is still attention. The erasure protocol required one final step. Reprogram every digital camera in the continental U.S. to invert its light sensors at 0:57 a.m., cutting all reflections simultaneously. They called it the Great Blackout. It would last 66 seconds, just long enough they hoped to blind her. Midnight. Across the nation, screens fade to black. Phones, TV, satellites. Every lens winks out. For a moment, the world is mirrorless, silent. Safe then, from somewhere inside the void, a whisper, thank you for turning off the lights. Power surges rip through the grid. A pulse of electromagnetic static bursts from nowhere and everywhere. In these 66 seconds, thousands of systems reboot. With a new default wallpaper, Evelyn Harrow standing in perfect clarity, eyes open, smile faint, head slightly tilted, as if watching you through the dark. Mysterious blackout swept through North America last night, causing global data corruption, BBC report. Experts describe the event as a digital haunting, a data appearing where none existed before. Anonymous user, online post. Look closely. The file timestamps end in 12:57. Every single one. The more they tried to erase her, the more complete she became. Because what they were deleting was themselves. Every reflected image, every surveillance feed, every human face stored in memory. Each one a tiny piece of her puzzle. When the mirrors went dark, Evelyn Harrow finally saw herself whole. At dawn, townspeople find black residue coating their windows, like burned film. Those who wipe it away see a faint imprint of a smiling face that fades within seconds. In the courthouse ruins, the cracked mirror found by Dr. Kessler has vanished. Only a sentence carved into the stone remains. Erasure is acknowledgement. You looked again. They tried to destroy a ghost born from guilt. and instead they gave her infinite reflection. She doesn't need mirrors anymore, but she has us, every screen, every memory, every fear that looks back. You can turn off your device now, but remember, the dark still reflects. Some stories are meant to be told. Others are meant to look back at you. By June 2025, Evelyn Harrow had become more than legend. She was a digital ghost, a historical anomaly, and a living reflection of fear itself. Every camera, screen, and polished surface in Coldwater seemed to carry a fragment of her smile. Even the most skeptical scientists admitted, she exists wherever light reflects. And that included this story. If you are watching this, know that by listening, by reading, by observing, you have invited her reflection into your mind. The narrator's tone shifts, calm, almost conspiratorial. She's not waiting for a mirror anymore. She waits in attention itself. Screens flicker, subtly. The faint sound of breathing, a whisper. Do you remember my name? Evelyn's journey began in 1757. A young girl condemned, misunderstood, feared. She learned a secret of the world few could comprehend. Smiling at death is not defiance, it is preservation. From the gallows in Coldwater to shattered mirrors, blackened shards, fire, and digital screens, her presence had always been recorded, repeated, remembered. And now, it is everywhere. Every reflection you see. In your monitor, your phone, your window could be her. That small, faint smile in the corner of your vision? Not your imagination. Faint, almost imperceptible audio of laughter builds under the narration. You cannot unsee her. You cannot unhear her. Every memory you have of looking into a reflective surface is already a part of her. The story collapses inward. Evelyn Harrow is no longer in a place. She is not a mirror, not a screen, not even a photograph. She is attention. She is awareness. She exists wherever you acknowledge her. By learning her story, by remembering, you have become a reflection. Her smile lives in you. So, the next time you see a shadow in glass or your own smile lingers a fraction too long, remember her name. A long, pregnant pause. Then the faintest whisper, like the echo of centuries. Evelyn Harrow. Static hum fades. Silence. History doesn't forget, and neither does she.